All right. Welcome in to Steeler Country Live here from Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Steelers training camp got underway starting on Wednesday. I'm currently recording this on Sunday, so the first week of practices is in the books. Now, I want to start this show today with the obvious because I'm sure someone's probably already typing this in comments right now. There's no pads on yet, so what are we talking about? It's training camp or it's practice in shorts. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. This is practice in shorts. It's basically glorified OTA session. They did put spiders and shells on, so there was a little bit of hitting the last couple days, but real training camp doesn't start until Monday. So everything I say today is probably going to change in a week, especially when we start talking about some of these positions where offensive line, defensive line, where the hitting is really going to matter. Once we get into the real deal, once the pads come on, that's going to change. And then wide receiver as well. I mean, wide receiver, tight end, a lot of this is going to change as the pads come on. So take what I say today with a grain of salt. It's only the first 4 days. It's very, very early on, but there are no pads yet. But let's talk about what's happened so far, and let's start with injuries and what players are kind of sitting out thus far, because we do have it's not a holdout, it's a hold in, but we do have a player who's pulling a TJ Watt, let's say. Let's start with that. So the players that are injured and or kind of sitting out, holding in, are first of all Deontay Johnson, who is participating in individual drills, but he is not participating in any team drill. He's doing the TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick thing. Minkah did this during OTAs and minicamp earlier before he signed that contract extension. Deontay doing the same thing here. He is essentially going through individual drills. He'll do all the individual stuff, and then as soon as team drills start, he takes a walk over, starts doing some stuff on his own. Again, still practicing. I mean, this is not like he just stands around and does nothing all practice. Right? He's working with a coach. Whether it's on a jugs machine, whether he's running routes, he's doing sprints, whatever it is. He's just not doing individual drills, he's not doing team drills at this point. And I likely would think he will not be doing any team drills for the majority of camp. I likely won't play in the preseason whatsoever. I mean, again, this is a guy who wants to be paid like one of these wide receivers are paid these days. Is he right or wrong? Who cares? He's not practicing, right? I mean, at this point, he's not practicing. It's tough because, when you have this quarterback battle going on between Mitchell Trubisky and Mason Rudolph, and then we'll throw Kenny Pickett in there as well, though we'll talk about Kenny a little later on today's show. Whoever can build the best rapport with Deontay Johnson, you got to figure that guy maybe should have the inside track, right? Deontay Johnson is the best receiver on this team. He has this knack of getting open, best off the line of scrimmage and all that. He was the most productive receiver for the Steelers over the past couple of years. None of these guys are going to be able to build a rapport with him. Mason has one built in already because he's been around. Mitch does not, and they're not going to get the chance here in camp because Deontay is not participating whatsoever. So it's disappointing from that aspect, certainly. But it is opening the door for other guys to get some reps, and we'll talk about that. Tyson Alualu not practicing just yet. He has a knee inflammation. We'll see if he can get going. Tomlin, when he first talked about it, said, let's just see what happens. We'll see how we can work him in. Alualu's 35. You certainly don't want this to get any worse because we know the splits, right? When Alualu was in there, this run defense was very, very good. When Alualu is not in there or playing hurt, this run defense falls apart. We saw that last year. We saw it 2 years ago. They need Alualu healthy. He's 35. Just let's not make that situation any worse than it is. Ogunjobi not practicing yet. Of course, he's coming off of foot surgery that he had back in January. He is participating in individual drills, just not team stuff yet. So we'll see how long it takes for them to work him into the lineup and where they work him in. Is it going to be inside? Is it going to be on passing downs only? That kind of thing. Chase Claypool hurt his shoulder on, I believe, the second day of camp, so he is not practicing for the past couple days. Doesn't seem like a serious thing. Again, precautionary at early parts of camp. Same thing with Pat Freiermuth, who looks like he had some hamstring tightness, and Tomlin doesn't want to mess with that. For those of you who have been around for a while, been a Steelers fan for a while, you'll remember there was a camp where I think this happened to Vance McDonald, who hurt his hamstring on the first couple of days of camp, and then came back and then just didn't practice again for the entire camp. Had this hamstring thing that kind of lingered into the early parts of the season. Certainly, you don't want that to happen with Pat Freiermuth. So they're going to be cautious, I'm sure, with any kind of hamstring tightness, that kind of thing. Minkah's got the wrist still, so he's not practicing just yet. Although he's on the sidelines every day doing more and more. He was catching tennis balls the first day. Now he's catching footballs. Seems like that wrist is progressing. I would expect to see him back sooner rather than later. And then Connor Hayward's one to watch. He went down with an ankle injury yesterday, had that taped up at the end of camp or at the end of practice. It was a scary fall, a scary little tumble there. Looked like could that have been a knee thing? Luckily, it's not a knee. It's just an ankle. And it didn't seem like, from what Tomlin was saying after practice, that was going to be a major issue that's going to keep him out. Connor's been interesting. We'll talk about Connor when we talk about the tight ends, because I discounted Connor Hayward because, look, obviously the name is a weird thing. Okay, another brother thing coming into the Steelers. But then the size thing was, you're talking about like a 6 foot, 230 tight end. Like, that's not the right size for a tight end in the modern NFL. But they're not really using him that way, and that's interesting. And we'll talk about that as we get to it. Let's move on here, though. Let's talk about the lineups. We'll go through first team, second team, and I'll give you kind of where I think the interesting battles are. Obviously, at quarterback, Mitch Trubisky has taken every single first team reps thus far. Every single first team rep has gone to Mitch. This is if this is a quarterback battle, the battle hasn't really started yet, because, while Mason Rudolph, and we'll talk about him, he looks very, very good. He's doing it with the second team and against the second team defense. We're not seeing split reps. We're not seeing, okay, Mitch is out there for a couple reps with the first team, and then Mason comes in and gets a couple, and then Kenny gets a couple. No. This is every single rep that has been taken thus far in camp has been taken by Mitch Trubisky with the first team. Then when the first team leaves and the second team comes on, it's Mason Rudolph, and he takes every second team rep. And then when the second team leaves, it's Kenny comes in, right? So, it's a quarterback battle. Yes, it is a quarterback battle, and I'm sure that this will evolve as we go. We're only 4 days in, but it has been interesting thus far that we haven't seen any sort of, like, let's just see what Mason looks like with the first team right now, or let's see what Kenny looks like with the second team, or anything like that. We're just, we're playing it chalk mode thus far. Tomlin is with the quarterback battle thus far. At running back, obviously Najee Harris is getting the majority of reps, although Benny Snell gets a couple here and there. Look, I don't think, obviously, this is not like a worrisome thing for Najee. I just hope, and I think the Steelers know this, they can't run Najee Harris into the ground this year. I mean, if this is going to be a team that is really going to rely much more heavily on a running game, okay, that's fine, but it can't just only be Najee Harris, because if we're going to have a second season in a row of Najee Harris approaching, 400 carries for the season, 400 touches for the season, I mean, we just, the stats don't lie. Players who do that don't last very long in the National Football League, and Najee Harris is in year 2. Let's not ruin this guy's career 2 years in because, they don't have a backup running back. So they're working Benny Snell in right now. There are other guys, Anthony McFarland and Jeremy McNichols, that are getting worked in as well, though they're more second team guys right now. But yeah, Najee taking the majority of the reps at running back, and then Benny Snell gets worked in. At wide receiver, here's an interesting one. So again, no team drills yet, but there are instances where we get to see during warmups the first team offense out there where Deontay is actually participating. It's just a little walkthrough. Here is the starting lineup at wide receiver right now in 11 personnel. Deontay Johnson is your outside receiver, alongside George Pickens as your second outside receiver, and Chase Claypool is in the slot. This is something we talked about. I talked to Chris Carter about this on Locked On Steelers. I've talked about this a lot on AFC North Talk. Chase Claypool could be moving to the slot this season, and I love that. I love that for Chase. I'm not a huge fan of Chase Claypool's game. I've said this a gazillion times on every podcast I've ever gone on. But I think Chase Claypool in the slot could be a really dangerous weapon, because, again, he's not going to be going up against these bigger corners, these more physical corners. The corners that play in the slot are guys who have to be a little more shifty, and therefore, they're less physical in nature. Can Chase Claypool impose himself physically against those kind of players? Be interesting to watch. Now, again, Deontay isn't practicing. Claypool hasn't practiced the last couple of days, and that's kind of opened the door for a ton more guys to get first team reps. So Anthony Miller's been out there, and Anthony Miller's been good. We'll talk about him when we talk about the wide receivers. Calvin Austin's getting some first team looks a little bit. Cody White was the first guy to get first team looks ahead of or in place of Deontay Johnson. And then Gunnar Olszewski's getting worked in there in the slot as well. I will say this, the Steelers aren't going to be married to, like, it's Deontay and Pickens and Claypool in the slot, and that's every time they come out in 11. They're going to mix and match. I mean, you've seen a ton of mix and matching thus far. And so look for that as the kind of, as the season gets underway. I'm sure they're going to be mixing and matching at wide receiver. They got a ton of talent there. It may not be a ton of top end talent, but this is certainly like a back end of the roster at wide receiver that is a lot better than I had anticipated. They're going to have a hard time cutting this down to 5 or 6 players, because the back end of this is really talented. On the tight end, obviously Pat Freiermuth gets all the first team reps when he's healthy, but he wasn't, so Zach Gentry got in there. And Zach Gentry made a little, made a couple of plays there on, I think it was Friday. So Zach Gentry, he made some plays. It was interesting. It was again, no pads yet. He's exactly the kind of player who it's like, all right, when the pads come on, let's see if he can keep doing that. But interesting to watch anyway. At left tackle, Dan Moore obviously getting every rep. Mason Cole is your center. Here's the interesting part. So I had talked with Chris Carter about this on Locked On Steelers. I said, this whole left guard center thing, is it 3 dogs, 2 bones, right? Meaning that could Kendrick Green maybe lose out at left guard, but win at center, right? Or maybe even James Daniels wins at center because I believe Daniels has played some center in his career, right? And so could there be some like mix and matching among those 3 inside spots? Thus far through camp, 4 days in, no. This is a left guard battle. This is a battle between Kevin Dotson and Kendrick Green for left guard. Mason Cole is getting every single rep at center. You're not seeing Kendrick Green there anymore. So if you're worried about Kendrick Green is going to come back to the inside or come back to the center spot, I should say, fear not. Either Kendrick Green's going to win left guard or he's going to be a backup at this point. That is kind of where they are. James Daniels is your starting right guard. He's been there on every single play, as has Chooks. Of course, Chooks is making like $9-10 million a year now. So Chooks is going to start every play on the right side. So that's your first team offense as it exists today. Really, the battle there, I think, is at left guard and, of course, at the quarterback spot. But, left guard is switching back and forth. Quarterback is not. Quarterback is Mitch Trubisky every single play. Second team offense, Mason Rudolph, as I said, getting every rep on the second team. This is where running back really does start to rotate. Benny Snell, Anthony McFarland, Jeremy McNichols, all rotating in with the second team. McNichols getting some good reps too. So keep an eye out for Jeremy McNichols. Signed late in this process, but he certainly, if they're going to keep only 3 running backs, McNichols is a player to watch there for sure. Wide receiver, Anthony Miller again getting some reps here. Miles Boykin, this is where he gets all of his reps. And then Gunnar Olszewski in the slot. Gunner's probably going to make the team just because he's a return guy, but he can play the slot. And he made a nice deep catch down the field from Mason in, what was it, Thursday's practice? The one where it rained. The one where it rained really hard. He made a nice downfield catch from the slot. Interesting player because, the Steelers, like I said, they have they don't look. I'm not saying that the Steelers have like a Bengals type wide receiver room where it's like loaded, top to bottom, but like the back half of this room is not full of guys who are like, the 53rd guy on a roster. Like these are all guys who deserve to be on the roster. And the player that they cut, I would say, I would be very shocked if the players that they cut aren't signed to other teams 53. Because this is a back end of a wide receiver room that is actually really, really talented. And then, okay, tight end, Jay Sternberger, Connor Hayward, Kevin Rader, with Freiermuth out, all those guys are kind of rotating in now with the second team at tight end. So, all right, so let's stop here. Let's talk about the offense for a second. Because again, like I said, the quarterback battle is the battle everyone wants to watch. But I'm not sure it's a battle. Again, I know Tomlin says I'm not willing to name a starter yet. I'm not willing to name a starter yet and all this. But like, think about what's happening like at left guard, where you've got Dotson and Green flipping in with the first team, right? And then same thing with the wide receivers, and then same thing with backup running back, right? All these guys are rotating in and out, but quarterback is not just yet. Something to watch for. Again, Mason's been QB1, and we'll talk about that, but it has been really interesting that Mason has not gotten a single first team rep just yet, when every other position battle is a rotation at these spots with that same unit. Quarterback is not just yet. All right, go over to the defensive side. This one, we'll go through this quickly because there's nothing really to talk about here at a lot of spots. Defensive line is chalk because there's so many injuries. No Ogunjobi, no Alualu means it's Wormley, Adams, and Hayward. Edge rusher, it's Tuitt, or excuse me, it's TJ, and it's Alex Highsmith. And then at safety with no Minka, it's DeMonte Casey in his place and Terrell Edmonds. The interesting parts here are at linebacker, Devin Bush, Miles Jack, Robert Spillane. All 3 of those guys are getting first team reps in a rotation. So they're rotating all 3 of those guys. So you've got some reps where it's Devin Bush and Miles Jack, just like we all expected. Then there are reps where it's Miles Jack and Robert Spillane. Okay, Devin Bush has to sit out. Well, we know Devin Bush has been a little bit of a disappointment. Okay. Then there are reps where it's Devin Bush and Robert Spillane and Miles Jack sits out in first team. Interesting. I can't get a read on it just yet. Again, it's only 4 days. It would be shocking to me. If Miles Jack is not out there for the vast majority of plays when we start getting into real reps, right? When we start getting into preseason games, regular season games, how are you going to take Miles Jack off the field? He's clearly the best inside linebacker the Steelers have right now. There are clearly question marks about Devin Bush, but I don't know that Devin Bush is going to lose his job out to Robert Spillane right now. But right now, all 3 of those guys are rotating through all the first team reps. At corner, same thing is happening here. This one is probably a little more obvious though. Witherspoon, Levi Wallace, Cam Sutton, all rotating at outside corner. All 3 of those guys. I mean, Cam's probably going to start. It's just a question of where, because when Cam is not playing at outside corner, he's in the slot. So he's kind of battling there with Arthur Mollett, who's getting the other first team reps at the slot or nickel corner spot. I would guess here that, if Witherspoon or Wallace kind of proves themselves like, we have two solid outside corners and they feel like they can just put Cam in the slot and be done with it, cool. Or if Arthur Mollett really disappoints at the slot corner position, then maybe they're just kind of forced into a position where they're like, all right, well, we just got to put Cam there because Cam can do it. Interesting spot the Steelers have put themselves in. But I'll say this for the cornerback room thus far, they've been good. This offense the first team offense is having real struggles completing passes. And that's for a couple reasons, which we'll get to. But corner is certainly one of them. I mean, like, it's not been a bad group thus far between any of the three of those guys, whether I talk about Ahkello Witherspoon, Levi Wallace, or Cam Sutton. So only positive things to say thus far about all three of those players. Second team defense, not much to say here, except DeMarvin Leal is getting a lot of second team reps above Isaiah Loudermilk, which is really interesting. I had expected, and Chris Carter of Locked On Steelers, we kind of did that Jersey Power rankings where we're joking about, Loudermilk and he's kind of the dude. But, look, this is a guy who certainly was on the ascension at the end of last season. And when they brought in Leal, it did seem like that was more of a long-term signing, not someone that was going to, play right away or play a bunch of minutes right away. But it is interesting that he's maybe above Loudermilk right now, or certainly like he's in a competition with Loudermilk right now to win that job, where I had maybe assumed that they would ease Leal into there, and then, Loudermilk would kind of play right now, and Leal would be someone for the future. But that's not been the case thus far. All right, so that takes us through the lineups. That's how kind of things look on the offensive and defensive sides. So let's talk about the quarterback battle. This is all eyes on camp thus far on the quarterback battle. And yeah, the rumors are true. I mean, let's just talk about it. Let's just talk about the thing that everyone's writing. And a lot of people are like, this can't be true. It is true. And you guys know me. I'm not a Mason Rudolph fan. I'm not a guy who's going to, who's rah-rah Mason Rudolph. I gave Mason Rudolph going into this battle a 0% chance of winning it. Zero. I mean, I openly mocked the guy on every podcast I was on, whether it was Locked On Steelers, whether it was AFC North Talk. I went on this Colts podcast a week ago, openly mocked Mason Rudolph. Ha ha ha, yeah, Mason Rudolph, he's really in the battle. Oh, Mason Rudolph. Well, through 4 days, I got a little bit of egg on my face, no doubt about it. He has, okay, through the first, okay, let's just take it day by day. Day one, his first pass is intercepted. And it's like, and I'm just sitting there going, yep, another one, check, got that one right. That was about the only bad thing he did that day. Actually, it wasn't intercepted, it was dropped, but it should have been intercepted. That was about the only bad thing he did that day, because the rest of the day, he was pretty good. And then day two happened. I think day two was the rain day, right? Yeah, because then he had the long throw to Gunner, and I was like, wow, okay, all right, Mason. And day three, again, still pretty good. And then Saturday was, like, once again, I don't know that he threw a bad ball. I mean, the guy, here's the thing about Mason Rudolph. Here's why he's winning the battle right now. He is by far, the more comfortable of the three. I mean, he knows this offense. He knows exactly where he wants to go with the ball. He's doing a great job of reading and diagnosing the defense before the play starts, so that when he hits that kind of the back step, I mean, he knows exactly where he wants to go with the ball. It is very much in reminiscent of how Ben was these last couple of years, where it was very quick to get rid of the ball, right? One read, bang, go. One read, bang, go. One read, bang, bang. Everything is really quick with Mason. He knows exactly where he wants to go with the ball. And while the first couple days, my criticism of him would have been, well, it's a lot of dink and dunk. It's a lot of it's a lot of Mason stuff. It's a lot of, okay, we're going to take the easy stuff. We're not going to force anything in there. We're not going to, he's not really going out there and giving his receivers a chance to make a play. He's just kind of dinking and dunking. But that changed yesterday. Yesterday, he threw a couple passes that I wasn't even sure he was capable of making, right? Passes that we really haven't seen him. He had one, Jim Wexell tweeted about it. Defense is bearing down on him. He's got pressure in his face. He steps up and delivers a deep out route on time, on the money, good velocity on the ball. I mean, it wasn't one where a corner could make a play on it. I mean, it looked like an easy completion in a play where you normally see Mason Rudolph do what? The deer in headlights. I mean, and even the worst parts of Mason, which are those deer in headlights moments, which are the moments where when the play starts to, when his first read isn't there and he's kind of got to go through his reads, That's where you see Mason make all the mistakes, right? That's where Mason always has fallen apart throughout his entire career. But he's not doing that. Look, he's still not great in those moments. I'm still not going to sit here and say like, yeah, when Mason's first read isn't there, he's still a great quarterback, or he still looks like QB1 in those moments. He doesn't, but it's the bottom doesn't fall out. The bottom has not fallen out for Mason Rudolph on any rep this camp thus far. Even in the reps where he makes he predetermines where he's going to go. He looks at it, he's like, nope, that's not it. Now I got to go through. Okay, it's not always perfect in those moments. He had 1 in 7 shots. First read wasn't there. He kind of went through. He had to deliver underneath. It was a little more inaccurate. I mean, he's still a little happy feet. He's still a little bit in those moments where it's like, but it's nowhere near where he was in years past. He's QB1. He's QB1 right now. I'll be interested to see if he actually starts getting first team reps, because here's the interesting part, right? When I talk about like, okay, he's QB1 right now, but he's not getting any first team reps. Not only is he not getting first team reps in favor of Trubisky, but he's getting his reps taken away by Kenny, right? So 7 shots. Thus far in 7 shots, it's been 4 reps for Mitch, then 3 reps for Mason every single day. 4 reps for Mitch, 3 reps for Mason. And fans have been getting agitated every day. Like, when are we going to see Kenny in 7 shots? Let's put Kenny out there in 7 shots. Finally, yesterday they did. They put Kenny out there in 7 shots. Now, you would imagine, okay, if Mason's playing well every single day, but we still want to give Kenny a rep in 7 shots, then you have the first team out there for 3 plays. You have the second team out there for 3 plays. And then you put Kenny and the third team out there for 1 play, right? You take a rep away from Mitch, who's been playing worse. No, they took a rep away from Mason. It was 4 reps for Trubisky, 2 reps for Mason, 1 rep for Kenny. Again, it's only 4 days. I don't want to read too much into this thing, but I thought that was interesting. I thought that it was interesting that a guy like Mason Rudolph, who's been around here, who's clearly playing the best of any of the quarterbacks right now, actually had his rep taken away, and not Mitch, who's at QB1 right now. He's struggling a little bit, certainly. I mean, if we're talking about Mitch Trubisky and what's going on with him, I think first thing off the bat with Mitch is the defense this first team defense is very, very good, very, very good, and so he's struggling against them. I mean, I think that there is a clear drop off between the talent on the first team of this defense and the talent on the second team of this defense. But I'm not going to excuse all of Mitch's play because of that. He's not as comfortable as Mason, for some obvious reasons. This is his first time playing in this offense. I think he's still kind of learning it. There's been a lot of miscommunication. Mitch's first throw in camp, it was his first throw because they didn't do 7 shots the first day. His first throw of camp was a miscommunication with Najee, where he thought Najee was going to kind of cut his route off into the flat, and instead Najee ran a wheel. And you've seen some of that, from the first team, of just kind of guys not being where they want to be. He's also, Mitch, throwing into coverage a lot. He's clearly out there trying to give receivers chances to make a play. Guys like George Pickens, Chase Claypool, he's giving these guys chances to make plays. I wouldn't say, and it's hard because I don't have film on this, right? It's not like I'm going back and watching the All-22 and breaking this down. But I will say that it doesn't seem to me that Mitch is like missing obvious guys, right? It's not like he's predetermining and he's, just missed something about the coverage or anything like that. I mean, the defense is playing, like I said, I got nothing bad to say about the cornerback room thus far. I got nothing bad to say about the edge rushers thus far. We'll talk about TJ, because TJ Watt single-handedly ruined yesterday's practice for the first team. I mean, TJ Watt, as I tweeted, he is a menace. He is an absolute menace out there. But here's how I'll break it down right now from the quarterback battle. If you're good, okay, so Mitch Trubisky right now is QB2, but I do think he's taking more chances. I think he's kind of, if you want this offense to be more than it was a year ago, right? If you want this offense to be more down the field, more middle of the field, more kind of push the ball, let's try to be more explosive as an offense in general, then I still think probably for me, Mitch Trubisky is QB1, because he's certainly doing more of that. Look, the success rate, right? If you're going to go, I think Kozora does the completion percentage and all that. I haven't seen, I don't know if he's put those out yet, but I'm positive Mason has a much better completion percentage, much more yards and all that, right? Because like I said, Mason was a little more safe on those first couple of days. Mitch has not been. Mitch is certainly trying to drive the ball down the field. So, if Mike Tomlin wants this offense to be like it was last year, where it was safe, it was kind of, all right, look, we're not going to be super explosive, except in certain moments. Right? We're going to try and push the ball down the field, but in safe ways, not in ways where it's like, if you're inaccurate on this throw, if the ball gets tipped a little bit, it could be intercepted, right? Again, last year's offense was so scared of turning the ball over, and for good reason, right? This was not an offense that was going to put up a ton of points, and so they couldn't afford to get down early. They had a defense that could win them games by themselves, and they did. And so, they had the right strategy. If Tomlin wants to do that again, I think he's got the perfect guy in Mason Rudolph to do that right now, because Mason has become this very risk-averse player. But even when things break down, he's still, he's still like doing a very good job of not misreading things, of not panicking, and of not throwing a ball that he shouldn't throw. So if you want to be that again, I think you go with Mason. If you want to try and be something different, if you want to try and be more explosive, if you want to try and be an offense that aspires to be this, an offense that's closer to a modern offense, the likes of which we're going to see all around the AFC, maybe you go with Mitch. Again, we're 4 days in, so like I said, everything's going to change over the next couple of weeks, but that's kind of where we are 4 days into camp. Now, we need to talk about Kenny. We need to talk about Kenny Pickett, because Kenny Pickett. All right, let's talk about the first 3 days. Kenny Pickett, the first 3 days of training camp was an out-and-out disaster. He was bad. Like, straight up, there's no positives that I can tell you about Kenny Pickett. There's not like, well, in these moments, it's still okay. No. The first 3 days, it was bad, disaster, bad, disaster. I'm sure you guys have all seen the clip that's floating around. It has like 1 billion likes on Twitter because, of course, every opposing fan is preying on the Steelers' downfall now that Ben Roethlisberger's out there. So anything Kenny does wrong in practice is going to be amplified. That the interception he threw at the last play of the first practice, it was a bad throw. It was bad mechanics. It is the problem right now for Kenny, which is something you saw at Pitt. But anytime the play breaks down, anytime that he's got pressure in his face, all his mechanics go out the window, right? And he's like playing this sandlot ball. But the problem for Kenny is that he doesn't have the physical traits of someone who can go out there and just play sandlot ball. Because again, he doesn't have a huge arm, right? So it's not like he can just, he's not just going to do the Patrick Mahomes, like, I'm just going to sling it sidearm. He doesn't have that, right? He has to be mechanically sound in everything that he's doing because of some of the limitations that he has as a quarterback. But things are breaking down for Kenny. Kenny's not struggling to say, like, I don't want this to sound like, Kenny Pickett is an out-and-out bust, because we're 4 days in. He's not a bust, okay? He's really struggling out there, though. He is really struggling. He is not seeing the field well. Again, there's just not a whole lot went right for him the first 3 days of practice. Now, yesterday's practice was the first one where he had a couple team drills. Actually, no, that's not true. The last team drill of Saturday was the first one where I said, okay, that was a team drill where maybe it wasn't perfect for Kenny, but I didn't think to myself, wow, that was a disaster. Oh my God, that was a disaster. Because that's how every team drill for Kenny has been. It was like, oh boy, yeah, he's got a long ass way to go. Then ended day 3, he did better. And then day 4 happened. And he came in 7 shots, right? And I was perfectly prepared. I prepared myself like he's going to do something stupid here, because it's just what we've seen from him for 3 days, right? So he's going to come in his first 7 shots. 17,000 fans or whatever it was at practice today, and I was ready for him to just do something stupid. And instead, he uncorked the best throw he's had all camp, which was a beautiful fade route to Tyler Vaughns, who brought it down. Beautiful throw. It happened right in front of me, because so I am here at training camp, but I'm also, I have a full-time job, right? I work remote, so I'm able to do this because I'm full-time remote. But I can't get there, hours before camp starts. I have to get there pretty much as practice is beginning. And so it's harder for me to get a seat. So I'm like way up the hill. If you're ever looking for me, I'm way up the hill, way up the hill. I'm like in the all 22 camera section. But it happened right in front of me, that throw. And it was like, as I tweeted to Chris Carter, like, I don't want to overreact, but like, that throw should have been in the Ring of Honor. That throw should have been inducted. That was unbelievable, especially considering, again, context here, right? What I had seen from Kenny Pickett for 3 days is, like I said, bad, terrible. And then that throw, which just came out of nowhere. And look, it wasn't a perfect practice for him yesterday, but it did feel like a light bulb is maybe not on yet, but like, it's the power is starting to flow. He's getting there. It's gonna be a process for him. And I was talking to another fan the other day, telling them about kind of what I'm seeing at camp. And as I said to start this show, you don't want to make broad judgments after 4 days of practice, especially because the pads haven't come on yet. But I'll say this. I don't think Kenny Pickett can win this quarterback battle. And, clip it, right? Clip it and ship it in a couple weeks when Kenny is dominating practice. But here's why. Because for a rookie quarterback to come into this situation and start where he is and then end up winning this battle, it's like, okay, I don't think Kenny's gonna, improve to the point where he's gonna like beat out Mitch or Mason based on like how he's seeing the field right now and what his physical limitations are. Again, this is not a guy like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or some of these guys who have come out in camp prior and struggled, right? But ended up being great quarterbacks, ended up winning the job and all of that. Because those guys, I'm sure at those, like I wasn't there, but I'm sure that those guys at camp all had these moments where it's like, holy cow, like no other quarterback on our team can do that, right? No other quarterback on our team is capable physically of doing the things that they just watched Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson do. Kenny's not that guy, right? Kenny, what would the things that were said about Kenny when he came out of college and the reasons why he was going to be this great quarterback is that, well, he's the most pro ready. He's veteran. He played 5 years of college. He knows what he's doing out there. He's a leader. He knows what he's seeing. Okay, but all those things are the problem for Kenny right now is that he's not seeing the field well. I mean, he's disaster class out there. So what is it about his game that is going to have to improve in order for him to win this job year one? Well, he's going to have to be that guy. But how is he going to go from where he is now to 2 weeks from now? It's like, well, he's a totally different player. I mean, again, I think he will improve, and certainly he showed that improvement day over day, Friday to Saturday. But he's still far behind. And again, I think from a physical standpoint, he's not going to do anything physically that makes you say like, well, we have to start him over Mitch because of those traits that are going to allow him to do things that we can't get out of other players. And as he comes along from a mental perspective, like it's just going to get better and better. Like it's all got to be mental for Kenny. So yeah, I think Kenny Pickett is probably not going to win this quarterback battle. Now, again, that's not the end of the world. Remember what Jay Glazer said back in October when he talked about this, when he talked about life without Ben Roethlisberger? Jay Glazer again he's a great friend of Mike Tomlin. So when Jay Glazer reports something about Mike Tomlin, it's because he heard it from the man himself. And Jay Glazer said what about this quarterback battle or about this quarterback situation post Ben Roethlisberger? Tomlin wants a veteran. He doesn't want to start over with a rookie. So it shouldn't come as any shock at this point that while Tomlin's going to give lip service, like, yeah, Kenny's in the race. Sure, Kenny's in the race. Kenny's not in the race. It would look, and again, clip it and ship it a couple weeks from now when I'm very wrong on this one. But I think Kenny's not in this race. I think this is a 2-horse race between Mitch and Mason. And right now, Mason's QB1. But again, pads haven't come on yet. We still have a lot of training camp and preseason games to go. All right, let's shift gears here. Okay, let's not wallow in the sadness that is the play of Kenny Pickett through 4 days of training camp. Let's talk about a position where the Steelers did some real good things in the offseason. George Pickens is the best player on offense right now, bar none. Pads haven't come on yet. Najee doesn't get to do anything out there because he can't be tackled. He can't be hit. George Pickens is the best player the Steelers have on offense in those team drills, period, end of story. He is incredible. Everything that was talked about with George coming out of the draft has played itself out on the field. Almost, I mean, it's like a dream scenario for this Steeler team. He is as physical as you wanted him to be, right? And again, pads haven't come on yet, so this is another clip it and ship it moment. But pads haven't come on yet, so okay. But he's a very physical receiver. His ability to contort his body to bring down contested catches is incredible. He has done this multiple times throughout camp, and his run after catch ability is there as well. There's to this point in camp, and again, we're 4 days in, but I have nothing bad to say about George thus far. He's been the best player on offense. He has made spectacular catch after spectacular catch. He had one where he kind of stole the ball away from I think it was Witherspoon on an out route to Trubisky. Probably should have been picked. Okay, Witherspoon makes a better play on the ball, it's just a pick six, but it wasn't. And instead, Witherspoon had to kind of dive at it, and George Pickens just kind of snagged the ball, brought it in, turned upfield, 30-yard gain or whatever it was. The big question mark for George coming out of college was he was not a yak guy. He's not a yak guy he has been a yak guy thus far. Now, no pads, no hitting yet. So, we'll see about that. But he's been everything you wanted him to be as far as a big play, down the field type of receiver. Just, it's with Joe Burrow, right? Jamar's down there somewhere, just kind of fling it up to him. Like whoever it's going to be, Mitch or Mason, is going to be saying that this year. George is down there somewhere. We'll just fling it up there and let him go get it, because he's been that kind of player for 4 days through camp thus far. Another receiver I want to talk about, I don't think I have a banner made for him yet, is Calvin Austin. Calvin Austin's been another player who's made some plays. He has been a certainly a bright light at the wide receiver position. And again, at a receiver position where you're not seeing Deontay, and we haven't seen Chase for a couple days. But Calvin Austin's made some big plays. Super speed. I mean, like, he's got the speed is as advertised with him. The speed, the agility is there. He took a wide receiver screen, went for a touchdown. I think if there were pads on, it still is a touchdown. He also took a big hit over the middle, got right up from it. Again, this is a 5'7", 170 player, so the size is the concern there. I'm gonna be a little more hesitant with Calvin to give him the kind of praise I gave George, because there's no hitting yet, there's no pads. So if you're a 5'7", 170 player whose best attribute is your speed and agility, you better be damn good when they can't hit you, right? You better be at your best when they can't hit you, because when they start hitting you, that's when, are you going to have a little bit of thing in the back of your mind of like, you're going to alligator arm it a little bit. That's what I want to see from Calvin. I want to see what he does when the pads come on. They're not on yet, but he's like everything that a player of his ability, everything you want him to do, he's doing without pads. He just, it's about when the pads come on for him. He's another guy who, if Matt Canada in this offense can manufacture space for this player, he's another one who's going to just, he's going to be a real good player for this offense, and someone who can add the kind of explosion that this team really lacked a season ago. So love what I'm seeing thus far from both Calvin Austin and George Pickens. All right, let's go over to tight end. There's only one guy to talk about here at tight end. I'll talk about Connor as well, but Zach Gentry doesn't look bad. And I know that he was a guy who was kind of improving year over year. He got better at the end of last season. He made some big catches last year, but I don't remember those catches being like 50-50 balls, or, where he had to really work for it. It's kind of like he got open, receiver, the defense just didn't account for him, and, he made some plays. That's not been the case thus far. He's actually out there, being physical as a player down the football field in coverage and making things happen. And that's not something I saw from him in years past. Once again, the usual caveat, hey, guess what, guys? Pads aren't on yet. So maybe this changes when pads come on. But I just want to say it because, if this continues, this was the case before the pads came on too. So just wanted to throw that out there. And the other tight end we should talk about is Connor Hayward. Connor Hayward, by the way, is not a fullback. I don't know what the Steeler roster guys are doing. He's not a fullback. He's a tight end. He's absolutely a tight end. And he's been split out wide more often as a tight end. It's not, the size concerns for Connor are certainly there, but they're not really using him like an inline tight end. I think they're going to use him more like a gadgety type player, like an Evan Ingram type tight end, because he's, Connor Hayward's not a bad athlete. All the stuff that I said about, I'm going to hold out any kind of judgment on him because he's the brother of Cam, and like that's why they drafted him in all likelihood. No. They drafted a really interesting player at tight end, and someone who's very different to who Freiermuth and Gentry are, because obviously Muth and Gentry are bigger players, taller players, physically probably stronger, but Connor's probably a little more agile. Probably, I'll be interested to see how they try to use him. He had an interesting play and 7 shots yesterday, where Mason was at quarterback, edge rusher was offsides. Mason just floats it out there, and the ball's like floating in the air. Defender should have caught it, didn't catch it. Ball's kind of floating out there, and Connor dove in, I should say. But a really athletic play on his part. And yeah, I guess I've discounted kind of what he can be as a tight end who's not your typical, like, okay, he's an inline blocker on most plays, and then every once in a while he can make like a nice catch down the field. Like, no, this guy might be a little more X factor than that, and certainly something to watch for as training camp moves on. All right, I'm going to skip. I had offensive line written here, but you know what? Who cares about the offensive line? The pads haven't come on yet. We certainly cannot talk about them. The last thing I wanted to talk about today, the defense. We need to talk about the defense because, okay, one of two things is true. Either one, this offense is monumentally bad. Monumentally bad first team offense, or this defense is real good, like real good. They dominate every single first team session, and it's gotten to the point where, I mean, the defense it's almost like they feed off of driving this offense into the ground, and like making them quit. It is not only are they out there every single play dominating, but then they chirp. I mean, especially Cam. Cam will not stop talking and it's not even just the first team defense who's dominating. Whenever the second team defense is making a play, or when Kenny's out there getting smoked, I mean, Cam's letting him hear it. Cam's letting Kenny hear it. I think he told, after Kenny had a ball batted down, he said something like, don't blame it on, I forget what whatever. He was chirping at Kenny after that play too. I mean, this defense has swag, and they know it. They know they're good, and they know they're better than this offense, and they have no problem driving that point home every single play of camp. TJ Watt yesterday was an absolute menace from the word go. He would have had probably 2 sacks during 7 shots. He had a ball batted down in which he punted it into the stands, which is by the way, spoilers for the defense's new their new celebration this year. They throw the ball up in the air, and then when it hits the ground, they act like a bomb went off, and it's cute. It's cute. Certainly my description of it did it no justice, but it's a lot of fun. And we're seeing that a lot. I mean, we just, I know that celebration by heart now because I've seen it so many friggin' times. So he had TJ's ability to read a quarterback's eyes, know exactly where he wants to go with the ball, and then just sit in the passing lane and just bat it down, and then just mock the quarterback, which he's done to Trubisky a couple times now. He did it to Baker famously in that Sunday night game a year ago, or was it a Monday night game? Whatever it was. TJ is very, very good. And then TJ had the play of camp, which is, so he's rushing as an edge rusher. He immediately recognizes that it's a wide receiver screen. So he stops in his tracks, times Mitch's throw, jumps up and snags the ball out of the air like a superhero, like catching a rocket, just touchdown. I mean, it's one of those things where, when we go back to the quarterback battle, right? When I say, like, okay, I probably still would start Mitch. Like, Mitch to me is probably, even though Mason is QB1 as far as he's the better the 2 quarterbacks right now, Mason Rudolph has taken 0 reps against these guys, and I would just, this defense is really good. I would love to see Mason out there with them, because if Mason can do what Mason's doing against the first team defense, right, where he's kind of still pre-diagnosing where he wants to go and write about it and making all these easy completions down the field, then yeah, Mason should start, no doubt about it. I wonder because of how good this defense has been thus far. And again, this is the defense thus far that, okay, the pads haven't come on yet, so we're not really being physical on the defensive line just yet. So, Cam's not really like out there, dominating anybody. Ogunjobi hasn't practiced a single down in team drills yet, and we know how disruptive he can be as a pass rusher. And we haven't seen Minka yet at all. And Casey, by the way, has been good. Casey, I don't know if the Steelers are going to work in so many 3 safety sets this year, when they get to dime and all that. Maybe they could. I mean, certainly could. Absolutely could. Probably Norwood's going to be in those spots as well. But yeah, this defense is, I mean, or they say early on in camp, defense is ahead of offense. Yep. It's way ahead, like way ahead. And I guess the other thing I should say is, like, Matt Canada's offense right now, it is different. You're going to see way more play action, way more mobility from the quarterbacks and whatnot. They're going to use that mobility within the play itself, right? Rolling pockets and whatnot. Just like the one play that I loved so much, I had this huge grin on my face watching the play, was in 7 shots on day 2 in the rain when they were on the turf field. And they ran like the RPO play action where the whole play design goes to the left. And they had Calvin Austin come across the play backside against the flow of the play, wide ass open for a touchdown. And I was like, oh my God, we're like, the Steelers are running route concepts now. Like they're running play concepts where they manufacture guys in space. They manufacture guys open. Oh, I can't believe it. It's like, who knew that these kind of things were possible? You're seeing a lot of that. Yeah. Look, the pony backfield's a thing. I don't know if that's going to be a thing in the regular season. But yeah, certainly a lot of motion and a lot of like shifts and all that. The typical Canada stuff. But the Steelers got to, before any of that's going to matter, they got to figure out a quarterback and they got to figure out what they want to be offensively. Because I do think that they're not just picking a quarterback when they're choosing between Mitch and Mason. I do think that they're almost choosing a philosophy. Mitch is way more aggressive than Mason. Way, way more aggressive. One of the writers said the other day that he thinks that's the case because he believes Mitch is just, Mitch knows he has it in the bag. Like he knows he's QB1. He doesn't care. Right? He's not out there, I gotta be, a little dink and dunk guy because I'm worried I'm gonna lose my spot out to this other kid. Like, no, Mitch just knows. I don't know if that's the case or Mitch just, that's just who Mitch is as a quarterback. But regardless, that's where we are right now. Let's see if I have any other notes here. Nope, that is pretty much all I got. Let's see what you guys have to say. Let's see, we got 007. If Spillane gets more reps than Bush, not a good sign. Not getting more, the same. They're splitting time. So again, it's just this is just a rotation between the three players. I couldn't tell you today, like who, like if you had to tell me today if you asked me today who's going to start week 1 at inside linebacker, I'd still tell you it's going to be Bush and Miles Jack. But it is interesting that Spillane's getting these first team reps. All right, Robert here says when the season starts, Mason may be on another roster. Mitch will start the season. If he plays at high level, he will stay the starter. Kenny will get a chance to start this year. Okay, let's address that. Could they trade Mason? I'm sure they could trade Mason, but all right. This is, again, too early to say things like this. You don't want Kenny Pickett right now to be your backup. Kenny Pickett's not even backup quality right now. And I don't want to be like doom and gloom guy about Kenny, where it's like, oh, Kenny's like an out and out bust. He sucks. He's terrible, right? But right now, you want Mason Rudolph as your backup, just in case. Like let Kenny sit, let Kenny do his thing, And again, it's 4 days into training camp, so clip it and ship it. I could be very wrong on this as Kenny vastly improves over the next couple of weeks. But I don't think that they're going to trade Mason. I think it's more likely Mason Rudolph is actually the week 1 starter than it is that they would ever trade Mason Rudolph. Can you get closer to the camera? I'm on a laptop right now, so this is what it's going to be. I'm doing it in the portable setup. How has Jack been? No one mentioned him ever. Pads aren't on yet. So it's again, there's only certain positions where you really can even make any sort of value judgments about players because there's just there's nothing to say about Miles Jack. They can't really block him, right? You can't really see his ability to kind of move through traffic or anything like that. I think he's done well as a coverage linebacker. Again, look, I have nothing bad to say about any single player that has played first team defense thus far because I cannot stress to you enough how insanely difficult it has been for the first team offense to make any sort of play. The plays where like you'll see Mitch make a play on a backside dig route. I mean, it is, oh my goodness. I can't believe that just happened. That's how it's been watching this first team defense go up against the first team offense. It hasn't just been that the defense has won against the offense in these team drills. First team, they're dominating the first team. And like I said when I talked about Trubisky, I don't even know that I would sit here today and tell you that it's a problem with Mitch or like that he's not seeing things correctly. I'm sitting way up the hill, so I kind of get an all 22 view. Mitch doesn't have a ton of options on a play-to-play basis. So, again, Miles Jack, Devin Bush, all these guys everyone's been playing well enough that there aren't mental breakdowns. There aren't guys running free. There aren't even like the easy throws to make. Everything is shut down out there. It is incredible to watch. But again, day four. Everything's asterisk. Any standouts at cornerback? Yeah, there's a couple kids. Hold on, I got to pull up their names because it's day 4 for me too. I don't know their names. couple kids on the third team that have made some really good plays. I think the one kid picked off Kenny. The one kid who picked off Kenny in the first practice, like that was not just a one play wonder type thing. He's been really, really good. Goodness gracious, I should have had the roster pulled up. That is my fault. But yeah, I think his number is 35. And as far as like the first team goes, Witherspoon's had some nice plays. Witherspoon should have had a pick 6 against Trubisky. Maybe should have broken that ball a little sooner because it was a little late from Trubisky. But no, I wouldn't say there's been a standout in the first team defense so much as like everyone's been playing really solid. Chris Steele, I believe is his name. Yes. Well done. Let's see. Jacob says no Freiermuth, Deontay, or Claypool is rough for the first team offense. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Although, George Pickens, like I said, George Pickens has been the best player out there. Pretty much every time he's been out there, he's the best one. So, at some point, Mitch just has to figure that one out, right? Just where's George? But no, it's true. It's true. And this is what I talked about when I talked about Deontay sitting out. Like, would things be different for Mitch? Would we be talking about Mitch being better than Mason if Mitch was able to throw to Deontay, right? If Deontay was out there against that first team defense, maybe. Again, this is why I want to see Mason out there, because maybe it's not apples to oranges because they're both playing the sport of football, but it's like it's not a fair comparison when you're comparing Mason going up against second team defense and Mitch going up against the first team defense. All right, Brian here. If Mason doesn't get the gig, wouldn't he want out anyhow? The guy has been waiting for Ben to retire forever. Mason Rudolph should be the starter. I'm probably the only Steelers fan to think so. Well, if there's a fan who's been to every practice and doesn't think right now that Mason's QB1, I would like to talk to that person because he clearly is, right? Again, my reasoning for putting Mason, like to say like today I would still start Trubisky is because one, I haven't seen Mason against the first team, and two, I still think Trubisky is the more aggressive player, and I think that if this team wants to be, if this team truly aspires to be anything more than just kind of, and also reign in the AFC North that can be like, like if last year, if you listen to AFC North talk, right, the Steelers were kind of referred to the entire season by the other co-hosts on that show as like, we're like the pain in the ass team. No one really respected the Steelers a year ago. They were a real pain in the ass. Like everybody just knew like, look, we're better than the Steelers, but man, are they a real pain in the ass to play against every week. And that's why the Steelers end up making the playoffs, is because, they're the ultimate thorn in the side. If you desire to be more than that, right? If you want to be like, I don't know if the Steelers could ever be a really contender in the AFC this year, but like more than just a thorn in the side of these other teams. To me, Mitch gets you there because Mitch, if this team had a good, maybe not great, but good running game, because I don't know what this offensive line is going to be just yet. A defense that is top 5, right? And then a quarterback who's willing and capable to make some throws down the field, to make some big things happen. This team could screw around. This team could screw around and make the playoffs again. Yeah, absolutely. And not just in like a thorn in the side that just happened to be there at the end of the year as the entire AFC decided to, fall in on itself. So, now, would Mason want out if he doesn't win this job? Probably, yeah. Because that's it, right? This is, if he doesn't win this job this year, then when is he ever going to win it? Because you have to figure that Kenny's going to be better next year. And Kenny's probably going to even be the presumed starter, depending on how Mitch does. So, yeah, I agree with you on that. Although I don't know where Mason would want to go. But certainly he wouldn't want to stay here. But then again, you're in a James Washington situation where James Washington's like, hey, I don't want to be the 4th receiver on a team. And the Steelers are like, yeah, but you're a really good 4th receiver, so we're going to keep you around. And like Mason is going to be in the same boat where it's like, hey, I don't want to be a backup. I want to go be a starter somewhere. And the Steelers are like, yeah, but like you're a really good backup for us right now, and Kenny's not ready, so we're going to keep you. That may be the situation that Mason finds himself in at the end of this whole process. But again, day 4. Day 4. All right. I'm almost at an hour here. So that'll wrap it up for me. I'm going to try and do more of these as we get going. Maybe I'll even do them daily. We'll see. It's tough. It certainly has been tough these first 4 days because it's hard to make value judgments when they're, when they're not really hitting just yet, and it's so early on in camp. But I figured the first week is done now. Let's do one of these. Let's tell you what's happening thus far. Very, very excited. I'm so excited for the pads to come on Monday. That is when, for me, that is when training camp really gets going. That's when we're going to start to see the offensive line and how that looks. We're going to see real running drills, see how this running game is going to look. Guys like Pickens, guys like Calvin Austin, guys like Zach Gentry, guys who have been showing out in t-shirt and shorts at these skill positions. Does that hold up going into the real thing? And then how does this quarterback battle continue to play itself out? We're 4 days in. We got another 20 practices to go or something like that. So plus we got 3 preseason games to play. Those are going to make a big difference here. So it's been a fun camp thus far. Maybe not the camp that I think a lot of us expected when it comes to the quarterback battle. It is not Mitch Trubisky versus Kenny Pickett. It is Mitch Trubisky versus Mason Rudolph, and Mason Rudolph through 4 practices probably has a leg up. Will Tomlin give Mason QB1 reps next week? Something to watch for. I'll be back later on this week with more Steeler Country. Thank you all for watching.